Okay, folks, you're very welcome to the Locker Room podcast brought to you by DD Sports Science. Head over to our website, www.ddsportscience.com to see all the info, products, membership, whatever may be that suits your needs. For the next couple of weeks, we'll be looking at the Coaching Masterclass series. Really looking forward to this, talking to a lot of coaches around the country from different aspects of sport in terms of the GA, hurling, LGFA, and all the nitty gritty and right down to the grassroots. Tonight, I'm delighted to be joined by Stephen Maxwell. So I'm literally going to hand it straight over to Stephen. Stephen's going to do the introduction for me. So welcome on board, Stephen. So very simple. Who is Stephen Maxwell?
Thanks, Alan. Getting the podcast off to an easy start, I suppose. Stephen Maxwell is a current master's student in the University of Limerick. I'm doing a master's in applied sports coaching down there, which is, for me, a massive learning curve. As a coach, we never know it all, and those that do usually don't do very well. I'm a coach, education manager with Cricket Ireland. Am I any good at cricket? No, but coaching is coaching irrespective of what sport you're in. I'm a coach developer across many different sports codes. I'm the current head coach at Thomas Davis Senior Men. I'm a qualified performance analyst with a few different sports. And then in my spare time, if I have any, I run a performance consultants company called No Other Game Around.
So you're quiet enough.
I have a few minutes here and there, Alan.
Unbelievable. I suppose that's what, when we're looking for introductions, it's going to be a hard match with all that anyways. Stephen, I suppose we get right down into the thick of it. What led you down the coaching pathway, or what kind of brought you down that road?
What is it they say? Those who can't play coach. I played up to my late 20s, and I had a car accident, and that kind of finished my playing career. But I kind of knew at 16 years of age I wanted to be a coach. Up until then, I had a pretty successful club playing career, played with Dublin underage, had some really great coaches, had some really bad ones as well. And I was like, I can do that, I can do it better. And I suppose I went from there. I started off my coaching career in soccer. GA was always my first love, but back then, I seen soccer coaching as a higher standard, going for my UEFA license, got to travel the world as a soccer coach as well. And then just developed from there. I suppose I'm a little bit different than most coaches working in Gaelic games. Is I've worked across many different sports, amateur, professional, Olympic sports, and just trying to take as much as I can in terms of learnings for each of them, and then bring it back to my Gaelic games coaching. Obviously, I've done a bit with ladies football in over the last 4 or 5 years, and obviously I'm back working with senior men's teams now at the moment.
Yeah, so you have I suppose a really broad spectrum of, I suppose, all different coaching backgrounds, and even your day job as well. It is very fascinating because I would have predominantly known Stephen Maxwell as when he first came into my team was a ladies football manager, and the more I actually researched, the more I done more homework on it throughout the last couple of days. Like you're a puzzle that's very hard to solve. I don't know where you start or where you end. But I suppose for coaches, uh, for you starting in the soccer side of things, was it easy to transfer the skills from, say, soccer back to Gaelic, or from, say, if you're taking stuff from Gaelic, would you bring it to cricket, or what way would you try any skills that would be transferable?
Oh, 100%. Like, as I said in my introduction, coaching is coaching irrespective of what kind of sport you're working in. It's all about developing people. I'd be very player centered. I see on a Saturday morning when I'm down with my nieces at academy or whatever, you see the coach centered people where it's all about them, whereas I'm player centered. So for me, it's developing people on and off the field. Obviously, when I was first starting out, it was all about the technical aspects of the game. And, in soccer, bringing that footwork and the technical aspects in terms of footwork, bringing that into Gaelic football. Some of the best Gaelic footballers over the last 20, 30 years all have a bit of a soccer background. It helps out in defence and in the forward line as well. How to lose a player, how to defend, pressure cover, balance, stuff like that. Um, Obviously we've seen the introduction of the mass defense, swarm defense, coming from basketball. I did an awful lot with rugby league in the last few years when I was living in Australia. And then when I came home, got involved in rugby league here. I was only in Manchester last week, having a look at rugby league over there and bringing that back to our own game in Gaelic football in terms of line speed, how to break lines, how to break down a mass defense that's set, etc. So um, I suppose you can take anything from any game and bring it into another. Like in terms of cricket, it's a very technical game, and I suppose me learning to be a cricket coach, working one on one with players, whether it's bowling, whether it's batting, whether it's fielding. Fielding is hand-eye coordination. It's part of our Gaelic games. Um, you know, Working one on one with players, honing a specific skill. So, doing an awful lot of video analysis with one player. It helps to make you a better coach. Your observation skills, your analysis skills, your questioning of players, getting them to come up with the answers, and then obviously feedback to players when they need it as well. Um, it kind of makes you a more all-rounded coach, I suppose.
What I suppose this to strip it right back for Stephen Maxwell. What was your earliest memories of either yourself playing sport or getting into coaching, or who was your influences? Who would have, I suppose, brought you to, got you going,
I suppose I'm very lucky to two very great parents who are massive Gaelic games nuts. My grandfather was a massive Gaelic games fan as well. My great uncle won in All Ireland. Sean Farrell. I think his medal is still in the museum in Croke Park. Um, I suppose my earliest memories was going up to my underage club at the time would have been Fingal Ravens, because my own home club Ballybuckle didn't have an underage system at the time, and going up there as a 4 year old and playing with the under eights because that was the youngest team at the time. But learning my skills, and I've never been the biggest presence in the world anyway, but learning from the bigger kids, learning to be physical with bigger kids, finding out what my strengths are. I had to be faster than everybody else because I was smaller, and growing up, I used that to my advantage. It worked out well till I was about 18 and went to college, and then you get a social life and you lose a little bit of speed. But I suppose that's my earliest memories. Obviously my parents worked very hard. There was myself and my brother. He played up till he was about 14. Then he went a different route. He's a professional jockey and very successful. But I suppose our parents were driving us here, there, and everywhere. And when they couldn't, my grandfather was, driving us here, there,
Yeah.
and everywhere. And he loved the game, and driving home in the car. It was never about winning or losing. It was, did you enjoy that? What did you learn? And those kind of questions. Like as a kid, I was very, very lucky when I see. I worked for 2 or 3 years in America, and it's all about winning. And when you don't win, um, it's the end of the world, and you see parents living vicariously through their kids. Whereas listen, I had a great upbringing and I'm very lucky.
Unbelievable. And even I suppose the Irish thing is when you're growing up, and I suppose with parents and everything, it's kind of a case that I suppose a stigma to get into a car and the parents say, you didn't do well tonight, or you didn't, like for questions like that to be asked about, at a young age. I suppose that would have gave you the appetite to probably explore that a little bit more when you got to your own coaching pathway and everything else that went along with it. If I fast forward, and I know we'll have a lot to discuss here, but one thing I always like to ask, as a coach, and you've worked in various backgrounds, what is your greatest achievement? Like, what is your greatest achievement to date? And if I'm sure you have had many of them.
Greatest achievement. Suppose I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of great players. You know, in softball in Australia, players have gone on and won Olympic medals. Having worked in New South Wales, um, I worked with the Dublin minor women a few years ago, and then the likes of Jennifer Dunn, who would have came on in an All Ireland final at minor level, and we lost by I think it was a point or two. But seeing her go on and develop into the athlete she is today, and then going on to play in the AFL as well, you know, she's just one of many players who I had the opportunity to work with. Did I make a massive difference? I don't know. And to be honest, it doesn't bother me, but having the opportunity to work with players and seeing them go on and achieve success, I think that's my greatest achievement. And in fairness, I'm very lucky that I suppose, let's say 97% of the players I work with, anytime I meet them, there's still great conversations to be had. There's great memories, great experiences. And for me, that's the greatest achievement, that they'll still talk to you at the end of the day, irrespective of what success you've had on the field. And that's success for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's, I suppose, one of the most important things, even from my own side of things as a coach, is to make sure that no matter what club you work with or what county you may work with, in a couple of years' time, if you walk down the street, that any of the 30 or 40 people that you just worked with would be able to say hello rather than walk on the other side of the street and don't want to talk to you. For the flip side of that, what is your, I suppose, your biggest regret or a learning curve would be, I suppose, for yourself? Is there anything that probably notably stands out in your head saying, geez, maybe I could have done something different or
I'll be honest, I don't have any regrets as a coach, because my experiences at that time, whenever I was as a coach, I made those decisions based on the experiences I had. Has my philosophy changed throughout the years? Yes. Has my knowledge changed throughout the years? Yes. Would I do something differently now than 10 years ago? 100% yes. But what I knew at that present time, I think, and I still think, I made the right decisions. In terms of the biggest learning curve, getting out of Ireland, putting myself in different environments, honing my skills in different sports, is probably the biggest learning curve. Like, if you go to the Southern Hemisphere and you sit down with a coach, they're willing to share everything they do. And it's kind of against the culture in Gaelic games of us to share what we
yeah,
do. You know what I mean? They might let you in and watch the odd session here and there, but like, when I look at the AFL, I was with the Giants for a little bit. When we sat down after a game, we sit down with the opposition. What were you guys trying to work on? You know what I mean? And you're sharing your ideas. And obviously, all the analysis is shared between teams, from 18s and up. It was the same in softball, same in rugby league. Everybody sits down after a game and, you pick the game apart. I think this is what you guys were trying to do. This is what we were trying to do, and stop it. And you're sharing ideas, and then it might turn out you think some team was trying to do a particular thing in terms of principles of play, and actually turns out that's not exactly it. There was a slight tangent on it, and it's a great
was
way of learning.
was it? I obviously I don't know your age, but I'm assuming it was when you went to do this, like you were being a young lad leaving the country. Like, was it easy packing up and just going to different side of the world? Like, how was the adjustment, or was it hard? Or
The first time I went abroad, I went to the US when I was 19. And I went for a year. Then I came back. I done my degree, and I went back for two more because I loved it so much. I went to Australia when I had 21 years plus experience. I wasn't young at the time.
okay, okay.
I actually, I don't know if I should say this, I actually turned 40 this year. I don't look at 21 plus experience, but I took a career break. I was a lecturer, and I took a career break, and I went to Australia with the plan of going for a year. Stayed for two, only really came home because of COVID. To be honest, COVID hit. Was working in sport and decided to come home. But I think anybody can go at any time. Do you know what I mean? So like when I was going over, I was emailing clubs all across Australia saying, coming over from Ireland, this is my coaching experience. Would love to just come in and see the environment. Um, I had a friend at the time, Barry Horgan, who was working with the Brumbies. He's now with Meath, the Meath senior team at Column. And Barry got allowed me to come in and see how the Brumbies worked. Then through that, made contacts with him with the Raiders, which is rugby league. Then went in with the University of Canberra in terms of the soccer program there, the basketball program, which are elite programs, and then went up to the Giants, which are based up in Sydney. And then obviously got the job. I got a job working with softball. Again, didn't know much about sport, much like rounders. And I was just asking, to be honest, just asking the question. So what I'd say to anybody nowadays, irrespective of what age you are, if you have the time, if you want to do a bit of traveling, just reach out before you go. They're very acceptable of people coming into their environment. Professional environments are very used to that. As I said, I was in Manchester last week. I'm hoping to go over again in a few weeks to look at the talent academies in terms of Manchester City as well and see how they do their development programs and learn from that as well, and then share my ideas as well. So um, it really doesn't matter what age you are, to be honest. It's just having the willingness to make contacts, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah, and I suppose, yeah, for me, well, I'd always would have been a home bird anyways, but it would never probably came in my own head to see what. Obviously, you'll watch stuff on YouTube and you'll look at different sports and you'll try and take little bits, but it would never cross my head that they would even accept, just a normal original lad just send an email, and because they're such a high elite, but they're obviously their acceptance and willing to let people in and let them see their environments. It's completely different probably to what we have here. Like I'd say we get very hard to get into an inter-county session at senior level in Ireland. It's kind of nearly closed doors and kept secrets. Well, I suppose for me, Stephen, and just something that crossed my mind when you're chatting is, as you as a coach, what would you think is your biggest strength?
Biggest strength. She's, I suppose, like a dating profile. What are you good at? I'd like to think my personality is decent. I'd be a very outgoing person. I wouldn't say I'm cocky. I'd say I'm confident.
Okay.
In my coaching ability. As I don't like being a manager. I'm not gonna lie. An awful lot of, when you're getting involved with clubs, you're getting involved with counties, they want a manager, and I'm like, do you have to be a manager? What's wrong with being a head coach and building a team around you and having, say, an operations manager, have a liaison person to deal with volunteers and committees, etc. I suppose for me, I think, ask my players, to be honest, but
Yeah.
I'd say it's my personality. I'm approachable. In terms of my own coaching process, I share everything I do, whether that's with the players themselves. At the start of the season, I'd sit down with the committee and say, this is my plan. This is how I'll go about implementing this plan. Um, I'd say the exact same thing to the players. I touch base with their family members. I say, listen, this is what we're going to do over the course of this year. If your son, your daughter, your brother, your sister is down about being dropped or whatever, this is their process. So if you want to come and talk to us, this is how it happens. And to be honest, it makes the environment more positive, less bumpy, especially at this time of year come championship as well, because everybody understands what everybody's trying to achieve. And I think it's really important to share your process. I have three very core values, and I hold myself accountable to them. And another way of holding myself accountable is by telling everybody what they are so they can hold me accountable as well.
Okay. And I know, Stephen, as I said earlier, I would have just always before I delved right into actually doing research on yourself, I would have always kind of familiarized you with ladies football. Like you've had some very good success. You've been involved at high levels of senior intercounty, either whether it being coaching or managing, and you've also been involved on the lad side of things. What do you find between the both the LGFA and the GA? Do you find much difference in working from from one group to the next, or does it become? I suppose obviously financial side of things would be the GA. You would feel that would probably be stronger than the LGFA. But is there any like comparisons that you would say there's one way ahead of the other, or is there anything that would stand out for you?
I don't think so. I think it's the players. The players, irrespective of male or female, are extremely committed. You know what I mean? Like at club level, yes, players are committed, but at county level, the guys are doing exactly the same thing as the girls. Do they have the financial support there all the time? Maybe not in terms of sponsors, etc. But the commitment, asking them to train, whether it's 3 nights, 4 nights a week, whatever it is, the
Yeah,
commitment is exactly the same. The training, obviously through, body mechanics, the S&C is slightly different, but they're doing serious levels of S&C. The conditioning levels are the same. Um, the technical stuff and tactical stuff you're going to do, I don't change much in terms of what I'm doing with a women's team and a men's team, other than say the tackle in the ladies' game.
yeah,
I don't think anybody's ever happy, or an awful lot of people don't seem to get it right. But for me, it's just a lack of understanding of the rules. And once you understand the rules, you coach through the rules. And obviously, as a good coach, you're trying to exploit the rules at the same time as well. If you have a good understanding of the same in the men's game.
yeah, of course. Yeah,
Um, in terms of the players and discussions with players, I've always found that working in the women's game and working with softball is mainly women's sport, and then obviously coaching women's soccer as well. They do challenge you more in terms of their questioning. They want to understand the process a hell of a lot more than say in the men's game. On average, now not
yeah,
everybody's
yeah,
different, but I'd say above average in terms of the women's game. They want to understand the process, and it's really important to them. And I think if you really want to challenge yourself as a coach, try working across both codes.
yeah.
Um, it's a hell of a lot more challenging on the women's game for you as a coach. You have to have your process right. You have to understand long term what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I know. I suppose you were your most recent success would have been you were involved with the Dublin senior ladies. They have been a phenomenal force in LGFA for the last couple of years. How was it to work with I suppose a group like that? Because I suppose they're an experienced side. I know you would have worked with a lot of them when you were in with Dublin Miners, I'm assuming, but is it a different environment there? Because essentially, would it be elite environment because they've won so many All Irelands? Like, are they all pushing each other on, or do management have to come in and give them the boot to keep going?
First of all, I was very privileged to get the call off Mick. To be honest, it was out of the blue. To be honest, I've always wanted. Like, listen, it doesn't matter whether it's men or women's. I've always wanted to coach my own county, and I'm hoping I get the call again at some stage. I decided to step away to focus on my masters because I'm doing it in terms of GA, but in terms of the environment, players do drive it. If there's really great leaders in the dressing room, which there has been for a long time in that Dublin dressing room, and you've seen the same in the Cork dressing room, when they were at their peak as well. But elite level inter-county football, it doesn't matter what county it is. It's elite in that environment. Though that Dublin group, phenomenal people in that dressing room, from the backroom team to the players, extremely driven. Um, Extremely privileged to work with them. An awful lot of technical ability, serious level of conditioning, and that's down to the backroom team and their expertise, I suppose. Mick's a very technically minded coach, and you can see that in the players. They're technically gifted, off all four limbs. Let's be honest. Unlucky this year.
Yeah,
Unlucky against Galway, went extra time. But I'm sure they'll be back. And like any team at the end of the year, there's a slight transition, but I'm sure they'll bounce back next year. But I just feel privileged to have been given the opportunity.
Yeah, something like that is unbelievable, to be involved in your own county and be able to get over the experience All Ireland final day and be able to be a part of that environment for the whole 12 months or whatever it may be. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You don't get that too many times, in your lifetime. Um, for I suppose for yourself, Stephen, that has so much experience and knowledge. And I know every day, as you said, is a learning day. Is there any advice that you'd have for coaches starting off on their journey? Like, and I'm sure, there's coaches that are literally starting maybe even at nursery level in their local club, or they're starting, being asked to go in with a under 10 LGF. Is there any advice that, from your experience, that you would say, what, I could have maybe I do a bit more on it or something like that?
Best advice. It's not about you, irrespective whether you're working with the academy or you're working with the senior men or women's team. It's not about you. Every single one of those players is coming to have fun. Like I'm coaching Thomas Davis senior men at the moment, and those lads are coming out to training every week because they want to play the game. So allowing them to play the game, you're there to facilitate as a coach. The best coaches become redundant irrespective of what age group you're working with. And if you can, over the course of a period of time, become redundant and you share everything with the players, you've done your job. Um, the best, I suppose, the best advice I got was when I was working in America. It's an abbreviation, and they do love their abbreviations. Maybe Irish people don't as much, but for me, it's Jeff, JEF, judge effort first. Um, so don't focus on the outcome of a process, whether it was a shot or a pass. Judge the effort they've put into it. The weeks of training, etc. I think that's the most important thing to do.
I know this is probably a bit off scale, and by talking to Stephen, like, you are very much a a player centered person, and it would be something that I'd love to know. What is Thomas Davis? What is your session when you're with Thomas Davis? Jay, are you more of a game based model? Would you be more of um a structured kind of what is your session plan on any given night, or what do you kind of base your sessions around, if you mind me asking?
God, you're asking me a tough one now. I suppose it's based on the time of year. Obviously, we work back from an end outcome and we periodise our year based around that. Um, but I give an awful lot of ownership to players. We've a really great leadership group, and asking them,
Yeah.
what do they enjoy? What should we continue doing? What should we stop doing? What should we start doing? And then obviously I bring all my left field kind of stuff in, and bring variety to sessions. So I think
And
when we have
when you're going left field, what do you mean by left field, Steve?
so sports psychology is still a new thing in sport in Ireland, and people think, it's coming up the championship, let's get a sports psychology in. But mental training is just like physical training. You're doing it all year round. So we do, fun games at the start of sessions, whether it's in the gym, in the dressing rooms, or on the pitch. And it's all about training the mind and working both sides of the brain. So we have arrival games, 1v1s, 2v1s, 2v2s, 4v2s, 4v3s. They could be with tennis balls, golf balls, a rugby ball, whatever. And it's a bit of fun, but they're activating neurons in the brain. That's usually how we get going. Obviously, you might have maybe a small sided game, with a tactical principle we're going after, or technical aspects of the game. Um, we work on all four limbs every session at the start of the session. Then we're going into, we might have a game based scenario, but like it's like buzzwords are really big at the moment. Game based scenarios are really big at the moment, but that can be repetitive as well. It's just games, games. Whereas, you know, you might need to focus on an individual skill or an individual principle, and that could be shadow play. It could be, you know, certain types of drills, or you've got the constraints led approach. Um, so you're always trying to keep players on your toes, and my sessions will change all the time. I don't like to be too repetitive. Obviously coming into championship, there will be some repetition to make sure we hone certain tactical aspects of our game. But I think variety is really important, and the lads love it. Like,
Yeah, yeah, no, no. I think for me, Stephen, was your you have your own sports performance cons- consultancy, no other game around. Where did that come from, or what was the idea behind it? If you don't mind me asking.
I suppose the idea behind it is just to share what I do. I suppose. I've kind of gone off on a tangent
You,
lately through my network and working with businesses now in terms of developing an environment, or the buzzword that is culture. But I suppose on Instagram, like if anybody's following it, I just share my thoughts, you know. So like the 1v1 and the importance of the 1v1 in coaching. I think an awful lot of teams will see, you know, the likes of Galway or Armagh play at the weekend, and they see, you know, how a team transitions everybody coming back, how a team transitions everybody going forward, and they try to get their under eights to do that. But those players need to learn how to do 1v1s. If you were doing 1v1s every single week, the players are learning how to defend, and they're being challenged by their teammates. You don't have to do an awful lot of practical coaching there. The players are learning through those 1v1 scenarios, whether they're attacking or defending. And I think that's really important. And it's just kind of sharing those thoughts. So I share stuff on coaching, sports psychology, sports nutrition. We do performance analysis with teams all around the country. We've worked with a few counties over the course of the last few years. We've worked across codes. We still do a bit of work in Australia. We still do a bit of work in the US, um, working with different sports as well. And then if I can't do it, or some of my contractors can't do it, we'll subcontract someone in, um, with the right abilities and the right skill sets to do it, to work with teams.
yeah, I suppose I don't want to keep you on the line too long, because I know, as you said, you don't really have much minutes. But one thing I want to finish up on is, where would you like to see Stephen Maxwell in 5 years' time?
5 years time, hopefully over the next few days I'll finally finish my dissertation. So in 5 years time I'll have an MSc, whether that's before or after my name now, I'm not too sure. I'd say I'll be still on the continuous professional development road, I suppose. What's next? Whether it's a PhD, I don't know. But to improve and develop my coaching, obviously I'd like to work in professional sport again, whether that's in Ireland or elsewhere. Who knows what's around the corner? I'd love to coach my county again, whether that's as a manager, going on a county board or whatever. But I'd love to work with Dublin again, whether that's men or women's. Obviously, I'd love to win a county title in Dublin this year. Um, in 5 years' time, hopefully there'll be, you know, one of my teams will have done that. Um, I'll definitely still be coaching. I'll be doing something in sport. Obviously my career is sport, the 9 to 5. I'm very lucky I get paid to do that. So I'm sure I'll be working in Gaelic games in some aspect, whether someone wants me to be a performance analysis with a backroom team, happy to fill a role. Um, but I just love coaching, so I'll be doing it somewhere, as long as someone will have me.
Do you ever get tired of it, Stephen?
No, I don't. My master's is in self care and coaching, and it's really important that coaches look after themselves and kind of refill their cups. And it's not something we're very good at. We make sure our players do that. And I'm very passionate about supporting coaches. Um, and I'm happy to give up my time to support other coaches to learn and develop. You know, Working with coaches within academies all across Leinster at the moment in terms of my research, and I just love chatting to them and helping them get better. And most of that is actually off the field, whether it's supporting them in terms of the relationships with their family, their how they work their career, lifestyle balance, and I love that as well. It's just working with people. It's something I'm very passionate about. It's something I'm always trying to get better at as well. Um, I suppose that's what drives me. And as I said, I'm lucky I work in sport, which gives you that opportunity to to build relationships consistently and with different people all the time. And we're lucky. We have a love of Gaelic games, and that's what it's all about: meeting people, having a bit of banter with the other club or the other county.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're shaking hands, and you might rattle each other on the pitch for 60 minutes or whatever, but at the end of the day, you're shaking hands and there's mutual respect there. And I love sitting down with those people at the end of a game and go, what did you think we were trying to do? What did you learn? Is this what you were trying to do? And that's how you get better.
Yeah. Stephen, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for coming on with our and I will shout out to podcast today. You can check out Stephen. He's on Twitter and he's on Instagram. And if you look up the sports performance consultancy, it's no other game around. I'm sure we can tag it on our DSS. We're showing up as well. Don't forget, guys, you can check out our Daily Sports Science website, www.dailysportscience.com. Head over to the website, you'll get all the information, membership details, material, whatever you need. It's unbelievable resources. Other than that, Stephen, thank you very much, and we'll be back soon.
Thanks for having me on.